Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov chess channel, and welcome to a new chess strategy and tactics video. So today we'll talk about a very specific subject in the middle game stage. Today we'll talk about positions of maximum piece activity. So when we're playing chess, of course, we want to bring our pieces on the most active squares, on the most active files, on the most active diagonals. Basically, what we're trying to do is get the most out of our pieces all over the board. So when we are having maybe the most activity of our pieces, of our rooks, of our bishops, of our queens, then it's simply time to search for tactics, or it's time to search for a pawn move, because when you have the best activity with your pieces, then you cannot do better. You have to find good pawn moves, or you have to search immediately for some brutal tactics like x-ray attacks, double attacks, decoys, deflections, and all of these beautiful elements that we love to see, of course, in a beautiful chess game. So when we don't have the maximum piece activity, then we just improve our piece activity. We should search for new squares, for better squares for our pieces, maybe for more open files, for maybe better diagonals for our bishops. So as I said, it's simply time maybe to improve first the activity of our pieces, and then maybe strike for some tactics, maybe then also to search for good pawn moves. So as I said, first of all, what we have to ask ourselves in the chess middle game stage is the question, do we have really the maximum piece activity? For instance, in this particular position that I played here with the black pieces, I asked myself the question, do I have already the maximum piece activities? My bishops are really good here, both of them crossing all over the board. What I didn't like is, of course, that I didn't occupy so far the open e file, and what I didn't like is also my queen's activity. So see, the bishops, as I said, are really, really strong, but the other pieces could be maybe improved. So that's why the first thing that I did, I improved my activity of the queen. I played first the move queen to d4, check, after king to h1, queen to e3, getting really the maximum activity of our queen, because if my opponent takes out now the queen on e3, then we have f takes e3, and now I have two connected passers that are on the third rank already, and I think there's basically unstoppable. Would just push them in one particular moment. Probably white has to give up material in order to stop this pawn storm in the center of the board. So that's why after move queen to e3, my opponent ignored here the attack by the queen, played rook to d1, and now I have really the maximum piece activity. I think there's simply no better activity of all of my pieces on the board. I couldn't really find the better scores for my pieces. Now the queen is optimal, the rooks are optimal on the open files, here the bishops are optimal on the best diagonals all over the board. So I have reached now the position of maximum piece activity. What means now when we reach this kind of a position? So when we reach this kind of a position, we should search for good pawn moves. Now it's time to push pawns, or we should search for tactics. For instance, after move a3 that my opponent played, good pawn moves, I think, can happen only here on the king side, because here on the queen side I think nothing is going on, nothing is happening. So that's why we should search for good pawn moves, or we should search for tactics. So bishop takes f3 is maybe a solution, but I wasn't satisfied with the outcome of this particular tactic, because what I saw after queen to f3 is that my opponent could cover and he could defend actually my tactical shot, and I think he could get out of this mess, and maybe I could even lose the game. So that's why after move a3, so no good tactics are possible here. So that's why it's time for pawn move. So as I said, when we reach the position of maximum piece activity, it's time to search for a good pawn move or for a good chess tactic. So chess tactics, as I said, are not possible. So that's why I push simply the pawn on g5 and try now to open here the long diagonal for the live core bishop. So this is now really beautiful, because there's no improvement, no potential improvement I could see for my pieces. The pieces are already on the best squares. Now I just started to push the pawns. After bishop to a2, I simply pushed the pawn further, and after bishop to f7, I even ignored the threat of bishop takes e8, because my opponent's attack is simply too slow. I simply proceeded here with the move g4, bishop to e8, g takes f3, queen takes e3. That's the position that I wanted to get in the first place, because now I have again these two connected passers on the third rank. In the continuation, g takes f3, bishop to f3, the king has to step back. Now we have even d2, the pawn pawns are rolling here. Rook to a1, rook takes e8, and after rook to f1, we have here also a beautiful checkmate by the by both of these bishops and by the beautiful rook activity on the g file. So that's very important here to notice. So as I said, when we are playing the positions like this, the first question that we ask ourselves is, do my pieces already have the most activity here on the board? In my opinion, so far, the position is good, of course, for me, but it's not the optimal position because the queen needs to improve, and also the rooks have to be placed, of course, on the open file, on the open e file. So let's see now a different position. Here's the position played by Jan Nepomniachtchi against Alexander Karitonov. Here we have already, I think, a position of maximum piece activity. So here Jan Nepomniachtchi has, I think, the pieces already on the optimal squares. Look at this. Rook to c3 or rook to e3 are not working because the knight on d5 is controlling these two squares, so no rook lifts are possible. That's, I think, something that bothers white in the continuation of the game, because we want to, of course, improve maybe our rook activity, and the only way I see is a potential rook lift, and then maybe to place it on h3 where it could maybe attack here the weak pawn on h7. So that's why I think we can call this position already as a position of maximum piece activity. We have already our pieces on the most active squares. What should we do when we have already this kind of a position? So as I said, when we have this kind of a position, it's time to search for good pawn moves or immediately for some chess tactics. So here, of course, one possibility is h4. It's perfectly fine. I think we can play immediately a pawn move. We're trying now to play the move h5, or we could search for immediately chess tactics. So what could be maybe a chess tactic, and Jan Nepomniachtchi saw this tactic immediately. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now here the best continuation for white. It's an outstanding, really immortal tactic that Nepo played here. Really incredible tactical shot. So take your time, try to see now here really the best continuation here for white. So okay, as I said, our pieces are already in best shape, so that's why we should maybe immediately search for tactics. If you cannot maybe see the tactics, then as I said, it's time to search for a good pawn move. So that's why h4 makes sense, but actually the best move is here knight from g to f7, sacrificing the knight. After the rook takes f7, now comes the stunner, queen to h6. If you pick up now, of course, here the queen, pardon me, then we have rook, the knight takes f7, the royal fork, and here obviously white is much better. So that's why after move queen to h6, we have now king to g8. Now Nepo took, it's a different story when we take out the rook when the queen is already there. Now we can also pick up this one. Look at this, rook takes c7 by Jan Nepomniachtchi, queen to c7, bishop to d5, a very important move because the knight is connected to the queen. We want to play queen to h7 and trade off here the queen, so that's why bishop to d5. Here the king has to step back, and now after bishop to e6, basically the game moved over here from black. White won decisive material, and Nepo eventually won the game. So as I said, this is a specific position in which white has already the position of maximum piece activity. So as I said, when we have this kind of a position, it's time to search for great pawn moves or for immediate chess tactics. So I think h4 also makes sense in this particular position. It's a good move, also trying to create some kind of a madness here, but knight to f7 is already a thematic tactical shot with this beautiful deflection idea of queen to h6. So here is a new position. It's a beautiful game played by Alexander Morozevich against Luke McShane. Here again, I think we have already the position of maximum piece activity, because I couldn't really find maybe better scores for my pieces. Maybe rook to f3, rook to g3, or maybe knight to g4 here is an opportunity for white to place the knight there. But actually knight to g4 is of course a preparation to play maybe queen to h6, but already the knight is controlling h6. So far I think there's simply no time here in order to improve our minor piece activity, in order to play also improve maybe our rook activity. When it comes to chess tactics, so when we don't have any more time to improve our pieces, then it's, as I said, time for pawn moves, or it's time to search for chess tactics. So here in this particular position, the only tactic that I see is maybe this one, d takes e6, but actually this is not working. So many of us, I think, would search for opportunities here. So that's why d takes e6 seems tempting, but actually d takes e6, knight to e6 is not working, because of a rook to e6, a queen to e6. Now we have this one, rook to e7 leads now into a complicated game for white, because after queen to h3 you will eventually lose also the knight here on e3. If you pick up now the rook here, then you get this one, bishop takes g2, and you lose the queen on the 7th rank. So it's tempting. As I said, this move d takes e6 seems tempting, but actually this is a position that's very complicated. So that's why here it's simply not time to search for tactics. After move e6, that black played here. So as I said, we have again the position of maximum piece activity. So maybe it's time to search for new pawn move. So that's why here Alexander Morozevich found the brilliant f5. So it's now a different story. It's now a different thematic move after e5 that Luke McShane played here. He passed through. He didn't want to get destroyed here on light scores. Now Alexander Morozevich took f takes g6 with the threat of queen to h7. So that's why you have to play h takes g6, and now comes the stunner queen to f3, lining up the queen here on the f file. Now the f6 is weak. In the continuation we have f5, and now Morozevich continued with this brutal knight takes f5, g takes f5, knight to f5, knight takes f5, queen to f5. Again the threat of queen to f7. Here we have d6 connecting the rook to the defense of the knight, but now again a beautiful move by Morozevich, queen to g6. Now we have this one, king to f8, and now queen takes d6. A brilliant stunning move here by Morozevich. Rook to e7, rook takes f7, really wild stuff. The king has to take, the rook cannot take, of course, because of the pin. And now after rook to f1 we have rook queen to g6, and after a couple of checks we have even this beautiful checkmate with queen to e8. That was all possible because of our positional understanding that we have already the maximum piece activity. So as I said, when we have the maximum piece activity, it's time to search for tactics. So in this particular position, no tactics were possible because d takes e6 was actually not the best of continuations. That's why we should search for pawn move, and f5 really destroyed here black's defense, really created really some tactical damage. So let's see now another position. It's a beautiful gameplay by Gerasimov against Vasil Smyslov here with the black pieces. And Vasily Smyslov is of course the legend of the sport, and here we have really a specific position where we can really say that the knight on g5, g4, bishop on f4, and here the queen on c6, and also the bishop on b7 are building really enormous pressure. They are really pieces with maximum piece activity. But the other pieces of blacks are not so good. So that's why I think searching for immediate chess tactics is not possible here, because many of us would play something like bishop to h2 or knight takes f2, would immediately search for complications. Pawn moves, in my opinion, don't make sense because they're simply too slow. I don't see just a good pawn move here. So actually it's quite a specific position in which we actually don't have the maximum activity of our pieces. So that's why we should search for new activities of our pieces. So we have to include our other pieces into the game. So maybe you can pause the video and apply this principle of maximum piece activity by including some other pieces into the game, and maybe you should search now really for the best continuation here for black. It's really hard maybe to see, but it meets with this idea. When we don't have, and we really don't have the maximum piece activity, because not all pieces here have the maximum activity, only a few of them. So it's not really the story where we should push pawns or where we should immediately search for tactical shots. So maybe, as I said, you can pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for black. So okay, Vasily Smyslov found the incredible rook to d3. A really nice stunner, because this is a beautiful decoy, because if you play here, of course, bishop takes d3, then we get checkmated here on g2. If you, for instance, play queen to d3, the problem is now this one, bishop to f2, the king has to step back, and now we can play knight takes f2, the royal fork is on the board, you can pick up, of course, the bishop. Now after knight takes d3, still you cannot take, of course, the knight on d3, because still there is a checkmate threat on g2, so still it's game over here for white. So that's why after rook to d3, his opponent tried queen to b6, but it's not working. Now comes again the stunner, rook takes h3. You see how it was very important to activate also the other pieces on the board. If you, for instance, play something like queen to c6, then bishop to h2 happens, and now after knight takes f2, this leads into an immortal checkmate pattern here. Really wild stuff. So after move rook takes h3, here bishop to d4 was played, but now Vasily Smyslov played bishop to h2, king to h1, and now we have this beautiful windmill tactic, bishop to e5, king to g1. We can again play something like this, and after bishop to c7, actually in this position, white resigns. So incredible, I think, tactic by Vasily Smyslov, but that's all result of our positional understanding. So as I said, we have really here a beautiful piece activity, but it's not the optimal piece activity, because our pieces are not on the most active, the most aggressive squares. Many of our pieces need to be improved, especially the rook. So that's why obviously we are searching for the rook move, and actually Vasily Smyslov found the immortal rook move, rook to d3, found this beautiful chess tactics, and destroyed here his opponent with one of his immortals. So as I said, the subject is maximum piece activity. For the first question that we ask ourselves is, do we have really the maximum piece activity? If we have the maximum piece activity, then it's time to push pawns or to search immediately for some chess tactics. If we don't have the maximum piece activity, then it's time to activate the pieces, bring them on the most aggressive squares, on the most active squares, and then maybe search for a pawn move, then maybe search for cool tactical opportunities. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the study. Try to keep in mind really this important concept in chess middle games. If you want to know more about chess opening, chess strategy, chess endgame, check out my basics in chess series. Here's the link of our playlist, and also my become a master in chess series, where we study really hard in the chess middle game, and also in other stages of the beautiful chess game. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.